Hey everyone. You all liked the Princess Bride video that I did so much that I thought I'd do a follow up by examining another movie from the same period, which has also remained a timeless masterpiece. Quick plug, if you didn't see the Princess Bride video, the link is in the description, and a link to the video is here on the screen. So, the movie that I wanted to talk about now is The Goonies, which came out in 1985, just 2 years before The Princess Bride. And The Goonies has a few things that we could talk about that make this movie timeless. The first is the overall story plot, right? It's a ragtag group of underdog kids who save the day. It's definitely got some Scooby Doo vibes. A little bit of them solving a mystery, getting into trouble. It turns out the trouble might not be quite as bad as they think, but then it is as bad as they think, etc. Again, it's very 80s with a little dash of 70s nostalgia, even from an 80s perspective. But if you think about the shows like Freaks and Geeks or Stranger Things, they're definitely pulling on Goonies vibes. Another thing is this movie has a perfect sense of childlike adventure. So we've got pirate ships, buried treasure, secret caves, monsters, but it turns out that maybe they're good monsters. We're talking about Sloth, with the famous line, "Hey, you guys." And that brings up one other thing that I think makes this movie timeless, and it's got amazing casting and acting for great characters that are written really well. So let's talk about the casting real quick. First off, a lot of people don't realize it. Josh Brolin is in this movie, the guy who played Thanos. He plays the older brother. I forget the older brother's character name, but like the oldest brother of the Goonies, the one who's trying to be like a jock. Ke Hu Kwan plays Data in the movie. And he recently won an Oscar. We did a quick video about him winning the Oscar. You can check that link also in the description and right here on the video as well. Sean Astin, who, of course, went on to become probably most famous for his portrayal of Samwise Gamgee, but this is a young Sean Astin, even before Rudy and some of his other roles. Corey Feldman played a character called Mouth. Corey Feldman, this is, of these characters so far, of these actors, I should say, Corey Feldman was probably the most famous. In the 80s, Corey was one of the young actors. And funny enough, if we look at their careers, Josh Brolin, Sean Astin, Ke Hu Kwan, they all went on to have, ups and downs in their careers, but are still in the acting career. Corey Feldman has gone a very different route. That's a topic for another video. Jeff Cohen, he played Chunk, who was a very beloved character. He ended up he's not an actor anymore. He actually went to law school. He's a lawyer now. So if you ever wondered what happened to Chunk, he went to law school. In fact, I knew that he went to law school. He went to UC Berkeley, so I knew that. He's older than me, but I'm 2 or 3 degrees separated from him. One thing that was great about the Goonies is everyone could pick their favorite Goonie, right? So again, we've talked about all these different characters, Data, Mouth, Chunk. They were somewhat stereotypes, and so some people nowadays might look at the movie and be like, oh, you're making fun of the foreign Asian kid was Data. Chunk was the larger kid. Mouth wasn't really a stereotype, but, I could see some people kind of putting modern sort of PC vibes on it. But again, putting that aside, Data and even Chunk are actually seen as heroes in this. They're beloved and endearing. So I think that might not be fair. And again, people can pick their favorite Goonie, the one that they relate to the most, right? So you have these characters, and they're all written pretty well. Maybe it was just a more pure and simple time, but you could create caricatures of people quickly and easily, and the Goonies had it all. They had the older brother trying to be the jock, the cute girl that he liked, the smart kid who was inventive, the younger kid who just wanted to be cool, that was the Mouth, the slightly fat kid who everyone liked deep down but also got annoyed with and gave a hard time, right? He's famous for I believe it was called the Truffle Shuffle. It just reminded you of your playground. And I think that's why, for a certain generation of people, this movie sticks, is because it would remind you of your playground. You knew all these kids. Odds are you were one of these kids, right? Also, it's worth noting, Joe Pantoliano played one of the 2 evil brothers. He also played Cypher in The Matrix, and we did a video about the names from The Matrix. You can see that here. So even some of the older characters you probably knew or recognized, or again, if you maybe didn't think about it, but yeah, one of the evil brothers from the Goonies played Cypher from the Matrix. He's the one that betrayed Neo in the first Matrix movie. But anyways, the Goonies, again, had great lines, right? Goonies never say die. And again, I think if you had to pick one line from that movie, that's the most important line, it would probably be Goonies never say die. That's the whole point of the movies. These are underdogs, right? The Goonies are underdogs. Even if they were adults, they'd be cast as underdogs, but they're not even adults. They're kids. They're kids. And I forget the exact details of it, but like I think they're going to lose their house because of money. But sure enough, they come across this treasure map and they're like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can solve the problem for our parents. Maybe we can do it. And there's this great speech where Sean Astin is saying, we're down here. This is our time. Up there, it's their time. Talking about the adults. But down here, it's our time. And again, this is Goonies Never Say Die. They're not going to give up. They're going to keep pressing forward despite the booby traps, the criminals who are chasing them to try and get to the treasure first, despite the monster sloth, who again ends up being a good monster. Despite all the peril, they're not going to give up. Again, this is that Scooby-Doo vibe that I mentioned. All of this, and then in the midst of all this, there's a small love story, right, between the older children, Josh Brolin's character, and the older girl character, and things like that, and also kind of coming of age element, both in terms of their attraction to women and girls, but also just a coming of age in terms of their ability to be brave and be independent and again save the day. So all of this adds to what I would call sweet without being saccharine. It doesn't come off as overly cheesy. It's not a Disney movie. It was a Spielberg. It's not a Disney movie. There is real danger. There is real what I'd call attempts at being scary. By today's standards, it's not really very scary. But by the standards of that time and for younger kids, it's not whitewashed, meaning it's not a cartoon. That these kids are in some kind of danger. There's a gun involved, and there's chasing, and there's you see skeletons and things like that. So it's not purely sterile. It is a real world. They're in a cave, for a lot of it, where they could get hurt. And so all of this adds up to, I think a timeless movie. And again, it's just an original story. All of this are elements of stories that have been told time and time again, right? The underdog, the coming of age story, the treasure map for the adventure, et cetera. All of that none of that is new, but by calling it The Goonies, and then giving each of these characters a kind of modern twist, right? Again, I think Data, the Mouth, and Chunk were probably the most unique or like of their time and place type characters. But by doing all that, they really made the Goonies stand out. Just calling it the Goonies, right? And I believe it was because they lived by docks called the Goons, and so they were the Goonies. And again, it felt like something that you could relate to as a kid. And I think kids today would still relate to it. I think every kid feels like an underdog at times. And I think every kid, again, can relate to one of the Goonies, if not all of them, because they see them on the playground or, again, they are one of them. And that's why I think The Goonies is a timeless movie, because it really captures that childlike sense of yourself and placing yourself in the context of the adventure of your life. Not everybody, of course, ends up with a treasure map and finds it, but every kid does have that experience of there's something that I'm going to go for, and it's not going to be easy, but with a little determination, I'll get it. So thank you to the Goonies. Thank you for listening. And if you like it, please like and subscribe.